The auction hammer fell with a sound that shattered Garrett's heart into 1,000 pieces, watching as the ranch that had been in his family for 3 generations was sold to satisfy debts he could never have predicted. Standing in the dusty street of Belmont, Nevada, in the scorching summer heat of 1882, Adam felt his legs threaten to buckle beneath him as a woman he had never seen before raised her hand with the winning bid, her voice clear and steady as she called out a number that made his stomach turn, because it was so much more than what the bank had demanded, more than what his father's spread was worth in its current drought-ravaged state. The woman who had just purchased his entire world stepped down from the auction platform with a grace that seemed out of place in this rough mining town. Her traveling dress, a deep burgundy, that somehow had not collected the ever-present Nevada dust. Adam turned away, unable to watch as she spoke with the banker, unable to hear the terms of sale being finalized, unable to do anything but walk toward the saloon where he planned to drink away what little money he had left in his pockets. His father would be rolling in his grave, and his mother, God rest her soul, would have wept to see this day come to pass. "Mr. Garrett, if I might have a word." The voice behind him was cultured, educated, with just the slightest hint of a Boston accent that marked her as an Easterner as clearly as if she wore a sign. Adam stopped walking but did not turn around, his jaw clenched so tight it ached. "I got nothing to say to you, miss. You bought what you wanted. Enjoy it while the drought lasts, which might be forever at this rate. That is precisely what I wish to discuss with you." Her footsteps came closer, and despite himself, Adam turned to face the woman who now owned everything his family had built. She was younger than he had initially thought, perhaps 25 to his 28 years, with hair so dark it was nearly black pulled back in an elegant arrangement that must have taken her maid an hour to construct. Her eyes were an unusual shade of green, like the precious little grass that still survived near the ranch's spring, and they studied him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Discuss what exactly? How you swooped in like a vulture to pick the bones of my family's legacy." The words came out harsher than he intended, but Adam found he did not care much about manners at this particular moment. The woman did not flinch at his tone. "My name is Zara Preston, and I assure you I am no vulture. I came to Nevada because I have capital to invest and land to purchase, and your ranch, even in its current state, represents an excellent opportunity. However, I know nothing about running a cattle operation in this climate, and I find myself in need of someone who does." Adam stared at her, certain he had misheard. "You want to hire me to run the ranch you just took from me?" "The bank took it from you, Mr. Garrett. I merely purchased it at auction, which I understand is a distinction without much difference from your perspective." Zara Preston folded her hands in front of her, the picture of Eastern propriety despite standing in the middle of a dusty Nevada street. "But yes, that is exactly what I am proposing. You know this land, you know the cattle, you know what needs to be done. I have the capital to make the necessary improvements, to purchase feed if needed, to weather this drought until the rains return. Together, we could restore the ranch to profitability." The word "together" hung in the air between them, and Adam felt a complicated tangle of emotions rise in his chest. Pride demanded he tell her exactly where she could put her offer, that he walk away and never look back at the land that had been stolen from him. Practicality whispered that he had nowhere else to go, no other prospects in this dying mining town, no skills beyond ranching that would earn him a living. And beneath both pride and practicality was something else, something he could not quite name, a curiosity about this strange woman who had just upended his entire life. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why buy a ranch in the middle of a drought if you do not know the first thing about running one?" Zara's expression shifted slightly, a hint of something vulnerable crossing her face before she schooled her features back into composure. Because in Boston, women do not own property, do not make decisions, do not have any say in their own futures. I came west with my inheritance because here, at least, I can be more than someone's daughter or someone's wife. I can build something of my own. There was steel in her voice, a determination Adam recognized because he had heard it in his own father's words when talking about the ranch. Against his better judgment, he felt his anger begin to soften, just slightly. I would be working for you, taking orders from the woman who bought my family's land. You would be the ranch foreman with full authority over the daily operations. I am not foolish enough to think I can tell you how to do a job I know nothing about. Zara took a step closer, and Adam caught the scent of lavender, absurdly delicate in this harsh desert landscape. I know this is not what you wanted, Mr. Garrett. I know you would prefer I had never come to Belmont at all. But I am here, and the ranch is mine, and I am offering you a way to stay on the land you love. Will you at least consider it? Adam looked past her toward the edge of town, where the road led out to the ranch, to the house his grandfather had built with his own hands, to the corrals and barns and the little family cemetery where his parents lay buried. The thought of never seeing it again, of some stranger living in his mother's house and making decisions about land he knew like his own heartbeat, was suddenly more than he could bear. I will need my own quarters, he said, his voice rough. I cannot live in the main house, not if it belongs to someone else now. Of course, whatever you need to make this arrangement work. Zara's face brightened slightly, hope evident in her expression. Does this mean you accept? It means I will think about it, Adam said, but they both knew what his answer would be. He had no real choice, not if he wanted to stay connected to the only home he had ever known. I will come by tomorrow with my decision. Tomorrow, then. Zara extended her hand as if to shake on it, a gesture so masculine and strange that Adam found himself taking it automatically. Her grip was firmer than he expected, her hand small but not soft despite her obvious wealth. Thank you for hearing me out, Mr. Garrett. He released her hand quickly, nodded once, and turned away before she could say anything else. The saloon beckoned, but Adam found his desire to drink himself into oblivion had faded. Instead, he walked to the edge of town, to the overlook where you could see for miles across the Nevada desert, brown and parched under the relentless summer sun. His ranch, or what had been his ranch, lay in the distance, the building small from this vantage point but still achingly familiar. Tomorrow he would give Zara Preston his answer, though she likely already knew what it would be. Tomorrow he would become a hired hand on his own family's land, taking orders from a woman who probably could not tell a Hereford from a Longhorn. Tomorrow his pride would have to bend to necessity, and he would have to find a way to live with that. But tonight he stood on this hill and let himself grieve for what was lost, for the future he had planned that would never come to pass, for the legacy his father had trusted him to preserve, and that he had failed to protect. When the sun finally set in a blaze of orange and red that painted the desert in shades of fire, Adam Garrett made his way to the small boarding house where he had taken a room, determined to sleep if he could and face whatever came next with what dignity he had left. The next morning arrived too quickly, bringing with it another day of scorching heat and cloudless sky. Adam dressed carefully, putting on his best shirt and the vest his mother had made him before she died, armor against the humiliation of what he was about to do. The walk to the ranch took an hour, and by the time he arrived, his shirt stuck to his back with sweat despite the early hour. Zara Preston stood on the porch of the main house, looking absurdly out of place in another traveling dress, this one a dark blue that must have been stifling in this heat. She had been examining the house, he realized, running her gloved hand along the railing his grandfather had carved with intricate detail during the long winter of 1851. Something about seeing her touch those familiar carvings made his chest tight. "Mr. Garrett," she called out, clearly having spotted him approaching. "I hoped you would come," said I would. Adam stopped at the base of the porch steps, unwilling to climb them yet, unwilling to enter the house as a guest rather than its master. "I have thought about your offer, and—" Zara descended the steps to meet him at ground level, a gesture he appreciated more than he wanted to admit. "I will do it. I will stay on as foreman, run the ranch for you, do what needs doing." The words tasted like ashes in his mouth. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "I want my quarters in the old foreman's cabin, fixed up proper. I want full authority over hiring and managing the hands, no interference. And I want it understood that I know this land and these cattle better than anyone, and when I say something needs to be done a certain way, that is how it gets done." Zara listened carefully, nodding. "Agreed to all of it. I have some conditions of my own if you will hear them." Adam gestured for her to continue, curious despite himself. "I want to learn, not to interfere or override your decisions, but to understand what is happening on my own property. I want you to teach me about ranching, about the land, about how all of this works." She met his eyes directly, unflinching. "And I want honesty. If something is not working, if my investment is failing, if you think I have made a poor decision, I want you to tell me plainly. Can you agree to those terms? You want me to teach you ranching?" Adam could not keep the skepticism from his voice. "I did not come all this way to be an absentee owner, Mr. Garrett. If I am going to build a life here, I need to understand it." Zara pulled off her gloves, revealing hands that were indeed soft and uncalloused, the hands of a woman who had never done a day's hard labor. "I know I look like some foolish Eastern lady playing at being a rancher. I know you likely think I will give up at the first difficulty and run back to Boston, but I assure you I am more stubborn than I appear." Against his will, Adam felt the corner of his mouth twitch toward a smile. "You would have to make it out here. So we have an agreement." Zara extended her hand again, and this time Adam shook it without hesitation. "We have an agreement, Miss Preston." "Zara, please. If we are to work together, we might as well use first names, and I will call you Adam if you have no objection." He did object, but found he could not articulate why without sounding petty. "Adam is fine." "Excellent. Now, when can you move into the foreman's cabin?" Zara turned to survey the property, and Adam followed her gaze across the familiar landscape. "And what is the first priority for getting this ranch back on its feet?" The questions were practical, businesslike, but something in Adam eased slightly at hearing them. Perhaps Zara Preston was not quite as naive as he had assumed. Perhaps this arrangement would not be complete torture. Perhaps he could find a way to live with this new reality where the land he loved belonged to someone else, but he could still walk its soil and care for its cattle, and do the work his father had taught him. "Cabin needs cleaning and some repairs, but I can handle that myself," he said. "First priority is water. The drought has hit hard, and if our springs dry up, we will lose everything. I need to check all the water sources, see what we have left, maybe dig some new wells if necessary." "How much will that cost?" Zara asked, pulling a small notebook from her pocket and opening it with the clear intention of taking notes. Adam blinked at the notebook, at the pencil she produced with efficient grace, at the businesslike way she prepared to record information. "Depends on what we find. Could be $100, could be $500 or more if we need to drill deep." She wrote this down without flinching at the numbers. "And after water, what comes next?" "Feed. The grazing is poor right now and the cattle are getting thin. We will need to bring in hay and grain to supplement, especially for the breeding stock we want to keep healthy." He paused, then added honestly, "That will not be cheap either." "I did not expect cheap, Adam. I expected reality." Zara looked up from her notes, her green eyes serious. "My father was a banker, and he taught me that you cannot starve a business into profitability. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money. I have capital, and I am willing to invest it, but I need to know it is being invested wisely. That is why I need you." The conversation continued for another hour, covering everything from the current state of the herd to the condition of the fences to the hands who had left when the bank foreclosed. Adam found himself answering questions he would never have expected a woman to ask, found himself almost forgetting who he was talking to as they discussed the practical realities of running a ranch in drought conditions. When Zara finally closed her notebook and returned it to her pocket, the sun had climbed higher and the heat had grown from uncomfortable to oppressive. "I think that is enough for today. You should get started on making the cabin livable, and I need to go back to town to arrange some things. Shall we meet again tomorrow morning to begin assessing those water sources? You plan to come along?" Adam could not hide his surprise. "I said I wanted to learn. I can hardly do that sitting in town." Zara smiled slightly, and Adam noticed for the first time that she had a dimple in her left cheek. "I will need to acquire some more practical clothing, I suppose. These dresses are hardly suitable for ranch work." The image of Zara Preston in practical ranch clothing was difficult to conjure, but Adam nodded. "Meet me at first light. It will be a long day of riding, and you will want to start before the heat gets too bad." "First light," she agreed. And then she was walking back toward town, leaving Adam standing in front of the house that used to be his, wondering what exactly he had just agreed to. The foreman's cabin had been empty for 2 years, since the last hired foreman had left to seek his fortune in the Colorado silver mines. It was smaller than the main house, just 2 rooms with a stone fireplace and a covered porch, but it had been built solid and it had a good roof. Adam spent the rest of that day cleaning out the dust and cobwebs, patching a few holes in the walls, making it livable again. The work was familiar and soothing, and by the time the sun set, he had transformed the cabin from an abandoned shell into something resembling a home. He slept poorly that first night, waking repeatedly to stare at the ceiling and wonder if he had made the right choice. Every sound from the main house, where he knew Zara must be sleeping in what had been his parents' room, set his teeth on edge. The wrongness of it all pressed down on him like a physical weight, making it hard to breathe. But when dawn came and he stepped outside to find Zara already waiting, dressed in a simple split skirt and cotton blouse that looked borrowed or hastily purchased, with her dark hair braided down her back and a determined expression on her face, Adam felt something shift slightly in his chest. She looked ridiculous and out of place, but she was here and she was trying, and that counted for something. "I was not sure about the horse," Zara said by way of greeting, gesturing to the mare she had obviously taken from the barn. "The hostler in town said she was gentle, but I confess I have not ridden much." Adam walked over to check the horse, a steady old mare named Daisy who could probably be ridden by a child with no trouble. "She will do fine. Can you mount by yourself, or do you need help?" "I can manage," Zara said, and proved it by climbing into the saddle with only slight awkwardness. She sat stiffly, clearly uncomfortable but game to try. The ride out to check the water sources took them across land Adam knew intimately, every rock and gully familiar from years of riding these same paths. He kept the pace easy for Zara's sake, though he chafed at the slow progress. They checked the mainspring first, finding it reduced to a trickle but still flowing, then rode to the 3 smaller springs scattered across the property. 2 of the 3 had gone completely dry. "This is bad," Adam said, staring at the cracked mud where water should have pooled. "Worse than I thought." Zara had dismounted and was examining the dry spring bed, her practical skirt already dusty from the ride. "What does this mean for the cattle?" "Means we are down to 1 good water source for the whole herd. We will need to move them closer to the main spring, which will overgraze that area and cause other problems, or we start drilling wells." Adam dismounted as well, walking the perimeter of the dry spring as if he could will water back into existence. "Then we drill wells. Get me an estimate. Hire whoever needs to be hired and get it done." Zara spoke with the confidence of someone who had never worried about money, but Adam found he could not resent her for it when the alternative was watching his cattle die of thirst. They spent the rest of the day surveying the entire property, and by the time they rode back to the ranch house, the sun was setting and Zara was moving stiffly in her saddle, clearly sore from the long day of riding. She did not complain once, though, and when they finally dismounted, she took care of her own horse despite her obvious exhaustion. "Tomorrow?" she asked as Adam finished checking Daisy's hooves. "Tomorrow we look at the herd and decide what needs to be done about feed." Adam straightened, studying the woman in front of him. Her face was sunburned despite the wide brimmed hat she had worn, and there was dust ground into her borrowed skirt, and she looked nothing like the polished Eastern lady who had won the auction 2 days ago. "You did well today." It was the closest he could come to a compliment, but Zara's face lit up as if he had praised her effusively. "Thank you. I am learning." Over the following weeks, a routine developed. Every morning at first light, Zara would meet Adam to work on whatever the day's priority happened to be. She learned to help with the cattle, to mend fences, to read the signs of water or lack thereof in the parched land. She proved to be a quick learner, asking intelligent questions and remembering the answers, and gradually, Adam found his resentment fading into something more complicated. The well drilling crew arrived in mid-August, bringing with them equipment and expertise that cost Zara a small fortune. She paid without blinking, standing beside Adam as they chose the drilling sites, trusting his judgment about where water was most likely to be found. When the first drill struck water at 70 feet, clear and cold and plentiful, Adam felt relief so intense it made him dizzy. "We did it," Zara said beside him, her voice filled with wonder as water began to flow from the new well. "We actually did it." "You did it," Adam corrected. "Your money, your faith that it would work." "Our ranch," Zara said softly, then seemed to catch herself. "I mean the ranch that we are working on together." The slip did not escape Adam's notice, but he chose not to comment on it. They stood watching the water flow, precious and life-giving in this drought-stricken land, and Adam felt something he had not felt since the day of the auction. Hope. By September, they had drilled 3 successful wells and 1 dry hole, installed new water troughs, and brought in enough hay and grain to see the cattle through until the drought broke. The herd was looking healthier, the ranch was functioning again, and Adam had to admit that Zara's investment and his knowledge had combined to save something he had thought was lost forever. He also had to admit, though only to himself, that he was starting to see Zara differently. She was not the vapid Eastern lady he had initially assumed. She worked hard, learned quickly, and showed a genuine love for the land that surprised him. She had a quick wit and a stubborn streak that matched his own, and more than once they had argued heatedly about ranch business only to find themselves laughing at the absurdity of their disagreement. She was also beautiful, something Adam tried very hard not to notice. But it was impossible to ignore the way the Nevada sun had bronzed her skin and brought out copper highlights in her dark hair, or the way her eyes reflected the endless sky, or the way she smiled when something went right on the ranch, dimples showing and genuine joy evident in every line of her face. He was falling for her, and he knew it, and he did not know what to do about it. The problem was complicated by the fact that Zara owned the ranch, owned everything, and Adam was just the hired foreman. The power imbalance made any romantic feelings deeply inappropriate, and Adam had too much pride to put himself in the position of being the employee who made unwanted advances toward his employer. So he kept his feelings locked away, focused on his work, and told himself that being near her every day was enough. It was a beautiful lie, and it lasted until the night in early October when everything changed. Adam was working late in the barn, checking on a mare who looked close to foaling, when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned to find Zara standing in the doorway, a lantern in her hand and an uncertain expression on her face. "I saw the light and thought you might need help," she said, stepping inside. "Is it Buttercup's time? Soon, I think. Could be tonight, could be tomorrow." Adam turned back to the mare, who was pacing restlessly in her stall. "You do not need to stay, I can handle it." "I know I do not need to stay." Zara set her lantern down and came to stand beside him at the stall door. "But I would like to, if you do not mind the company." Adam minded very much, because being alone with Zara in the intimate darkness of the barn, with nothing to do but wait and talk, was a test of his self-control he was not sure he would pass. But he nodded, and they settled in to wait. They talked about small things at first. The ranch, the weather, the hope that the drought might break come winter. But as the hours passed and the mare continued her restless pacing, the conversation drifted into more personal territory. "Why did you never marry?" Zara asked suddenly, then seemed to realize how forward the question was. "I apologize, that was too personal. It is fine." Adam leaned against the stall door, watching Buttercup. "I was engaged once 4 years ago, Sarah McCormick, daughter of the banker in town. But when my father got sick and the ranch started struggling, her father convinced her to break it off. Said I was not a good prospect anymore." "That is terrible," Zara said softly. "That is practical," Adam corrected. "She married a mine owner and lives in Virginia City now, probably very happy, and I had the ranch to focus on, so it worked out." Except it had not worked out because the ranch had been taken from him anyway, and now here he was working for the woman who bought it. "What about you? A woman with money and education. I am surprised you do not have a husband." "I had suitors," Zara said, her voice careful. "My father had selected one for me, actually. Jonathan Whitmore, son of his business partner. Very suitable, very proper, very boring. He wanted a wife who would host dinner parties and produce heirs and never have an opinion about anything that mattered. You ran away." "I escaped," Zara corrected with a slight smile. "My mother died when I was young, and my father died last year. He left me everything, which gave me the means to choose my own life. So I chose this." She gestured around the barn at the waiting mare and the ranch beyond. "I chose freedom, even if it meant giving up everything I knew." They were quiet for a moment, and then Zara said, "Do you still hate that I bought the ranch?" The question was so direct it caught Adam off guard. "I never hated you," he said slowly. "I hated the situation. I hated losing my family's legacy. I hated that I failed to keep it. You did not fail. The drought failed. The economy failed. Sometimes circumstances are beyond our control." Zara turned to look at him, her face illuminated by the soft lantern light. "You have given this ranch everything, Adam. Anyone can see that. Your father would be proud of you." The words hit him harder than he expected, and Adam had to look away before she could see how much they affected him. "You do not know that. I do, though." because I see how you care for every inch of this land, how you remember what your father taught you, how you work yourself to exhaustion to keep everything running. That is the mark of a man honoring his father's legacy, not failing it." Zara moved closer, and Adam could smell lavender again, fainter now than when she had first arrived, mixed with honest sweat and hay dust. "I know I can never truly understand what you lost, but I hope you know that I respect it. I respect you." Adam turned to meet her eyes, and found her standing closer than he had realized, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes, close enough that leaning in just slightly would close the distance between them. The air in the barn suddenly felt charged, electric, full of possibility and danger. "Zara," he said, his voice rough, "we should not." "Should not what?" she asked, but there was knowledge in her eyes and awareness that matched his own. "I work for you. This would not be right." "You work with me," Zara corrected. "We are partners in this, even if my name is on the deed, and I do not care about propriety or what is right according to society's rules. I only care about what is true." "And what is true?" Adam asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. "That I think about you constantly. That I look forward to seeing you every morning more than is probably appropriate for an employer regarding her foreman. That you have taught me what it means to love something so much you would sacrifice everything for it." Zara reached up tentatively, her hand hovering near his face as if asking permission. "That I am falling in love with you, and I hope, you might feel the same." Adam should have stepped back. Should have maintained the professional distance that was the only thing protecting his pride and his position. Should have done anything except what he did, which was close the final few inches between them and kiss her. Zara made a soft sound of surprise and then melted against him, her arms coming up to wrap around his neck as she kissed him back with an intensity that made his head spin. She tasted like the peppermint tea she favored, sweet and clean, and the feel of her in his arms was so perfect it almost hurt. For months, he had been telling himself this could never happen, that the distance between employer and employee was too vast to cross. But now, with Zara kissing him like he was air and she had been drowning, all those careful rationalizations crumbled to dust. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adam rested his forehead against hers and tried to find words for what he was feeling. "This is complicated. Life is complicated," Zara said, her hands still linked behind his neck. "But this feels simple. It feels right. You are my employer. People will talk. Let them talk. I came west to escape what people thought I should be, Adam. I am not about to start caring about their opinions now." Zara pulled back enough to look him in the eye. "But if this is not what you want, if I have misread the situation, tell me now and we will never speak of it again." "You did not misread anything." Adam cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones. "I have been fighting this for months, trying to maintain some kind of professional distance, trying not to see you as anything other than the woman who bought my ranch. But you are so much more than that. You are brave and stubborn and smart, and you love this land almost as much as I do, and somewhere along the way I fell in love with you too." Zara's face lit up with joy, and Adam kissed her again, softer this time, savoring it. They stood wrapped in each other's arms, the barn quiet around them except for Buttercup's occasional restless shifting, and Adam felt something settle in his chest that he had not even realized was unsettled. This was right. This was what he wanted. And somehow, miraculously, it was what Zara wanted too. A loud whicker from Buttercup interrupted the moment, and they broke apart to find the mare pawing at the stall floor, her labor clearly beginning in earnest. The next 2 hours were busy with the work of helping a foal into the world, and there was no time for more kissing or declarations. But every time Adam caught Zara's eye across the stall, every time their hands brushed as they worked together to ensure the birth went smoothly, he felt that same rightness singing through his veins. When Buttercup finally delivered a healthy colt and stood cleaning her new baby with gentle efficiency, Adam and Zara stood shoulder to shoulder watching, both exhausted and elated. Without thinking about it, Adam reached for Zara's hand, and she laced her fingers through his without hesitation. "What happens now?" Zara asked quietly. "Now we figure out how to make this work," Adam said. "I do not have much to offer you. I am a ranch foreman with no property and no prospects beyond my salary. You deserve someone who can give you the world." "I do not want the world, I want this." Zara squeezed his hand. "I want the ranch and the work and you. That is enough. That is everything." They stayed in the barn until the colt was steady on his feet and nursing, and then walked back toward the main house together, hands still linked. At the fork where the path split between the foreman's cabin and the main house, they stopped, neither wanting to separate but both aware that the hour was late and propriety, even out here, still mattered to some degree. "Tomorrow," Zara said, "we should probably talk about what this means. For us, for the ranch, for everything." "Tomorrow," Adam agreed, and kissed her one more time before forcing himself to walk away toward his cabin. He did not sleep that night, too keyed up and happy and terrified all at once, wondering how they would navigate this new dimension of their relationship, wondering what the future held now that everything had changed. When morning came, Adam arrived at the barn to find Zara already there, checking on Buttercup and her new colt. She looked up when he entered, and the smile that spread across her face was so warm and genuine that Adam felt his heart stutter in his chest. "Good morning," she said, and the simple words felt weighted with meaning. Morning. Adam came to stand beside her, wanting to touch her but uncertain of the etiquette now. Were they courting? Were they together? What exactly had last night meant in the light of day? Zara seemed to sense his uncertainty. She took his hand, the gesture casual but deliberate. "I meant what I said last night, all of it. So did I." Adam looked down at their joined hands, his calloused and scarred from years of ranch work, hers smaller and softer but marked now with her own calluses from the work she had been doing. "But we need to be practical. I do not know how we make this work when you own the ranch and I am your employee." "Then we change the arrangement." Zara said it so simply, as if it were the most obvious solution in the world. "I have been thinking about this for a while, actually, even before last night. You do the work of a partner, Adam. You make the decisions, you know the land, you have the vision for what this ranch could be. But you have no stake in it beyond your salary, which seems fundamentally unfair." "What are you suggesting? A partnership, legally binding with your name on the deed alongside mine? You put in your knowledge and labor, I provide the capital, and we share ownership of the ranch equally." Zara watched his face carefully. "What happened with your family was a tragedy, and I cannot change the past. But I can give you back a future where you are not just working someone else's land. You would be working your own land again, our land." Adam stared at her, certain he had misheard. "You want to give me half the ranch. I want to make you a full partner in the ranch we are building together. There is a difference." Zara smiled slightly. "I told you I did not come west to be a passive owner. But I also did not come west to take advantage of someone's misfortune. You belong here, Adam. Your family built this place. It should be yours again, or at least partly yours." The offer was staggering, more than Adam had dared hope for when he had agreed to stay on as foreman. But with it came a complication he could not ignore. "If you make me a partner now, after last night, people will say you were coerced. They will say I seduced you to get back my family's ranch." "Let them say it. I do not care." Zara's voice was fierce. "I have been considering this arrangement for weeks, Adam. I have ledgers full of notes about how to structure a partnership, what it would cost, what it would mean for the ranch's future. This is not some impulsive decision made because we kissed. This is a sound business decision that also happens to be the right thing to do." "Show me," Adam said. "Show me your notes, your plans. If this is real, if you are serious, I need to understand what you are proposing." They spent the rest of that morning in the ranch office, going over Zara's meticulously kept books and the partnership agreement she had been drafting with the help of a lawyer in Belmont. It was all there, laid out in careful detail, the terms fair and balanced. She had clearly been planning this for some time, and seeing the evidence of her forethought made Adam's chest tight with emotion. "You are going to offer me this anyway," he said finally, looking up from the papers. "Even if last night had never happened." "I was going to offer it next month, after the well drilling was finished and we could prove the ranch was viable again." Zara sat across from him at the desk, her business-like demeanor firmly in place, even as her eyes held a warmth that made Adam's pulse race. "The timing is awkward now, I admit. But the offer was always coming, Adam. You earned it. I do not know what to say. Say yes. Say you will be my partner in this ranch and in everything else." Zara reached across the desk to take his hand. "Say you will let me give you back what should never have been taken from you." "It would not be giving it back. The ranch your money built is different from the ranch my father left me, better in some ways because we did it together." Adam squeezed her hand, feeling the rightness of this settle into his bones. "But yes, yes, I will be your partner. In the ranch and in everything else." The smile that broke across Zara's face was worth everything, and Adam stood to pull her into his arms, kissing her with all the pent-up emotion of the past months. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and grinning, Zara rested her head against his chest and sighed contentedly. "We should probably tell people," she said. "About the partnership, at least. The rest is our business. The rest will become everyone's business soon enough if we are courting properly." Adam ran his fingers through her hair, marveling that he was allowed to do this now. "Small towns do not keep secrets well. Then let us make it official. Court me properly, Adam Garrett. Take me to town, walk with me openly, show everyone that we are building something together." Zara looked up at him, her green eyes sparkling. "Unless you are ashamed to be seen with the Eastern lady who bought your ranch, I could never be ashamed of you." Adam kissed her forehead. "But you should know what you are getting into. I am not wealthy, I am not sophisticated, and I will never be the kind of man who fits in Boston drawing rooms." "Good, because I left Boston to escape drawing rooms." Zara smiled. "I want the man who knows this land, who fights for what he loves, who wakes before dawn to check on a foaling mare. I want you exactly as you are." The legal process of making Adam a partner took 2 weeks and required trips into Belmont to meet with lawyers and sign documents. The news spread through town quickly, and the reactions were mixed. Some people thought Zara was being too generous, that Adam was taking advantage of her Eastern naivety. Others thought it was a smart business decision, recognizing that a ranch needed someone who knew the land intimately to succeed. But everyone was talking about it, and by extension talking about Adam and Zara, and it was not long before the gossip shifted from the business arrangement to the personal one. Adam made sure to court Zara properly, despite living and working together on the ranch, making it difficult to maintain the kind of formal distance traditional courtship required. He took her to church socials in Belmont, walked with her through town, made it clear to anyone watching that his intentions toward her were honorable and serious. Zara seemed to find the whole performance amusing, but she played her part graciously. accepting his formal courtesies even though they both knew she had spent that morning helping him mend fence line and would spend the evening going over the ranch books together. The drought finally broke in November, bringing blessed rain that turned the desert briefly green. The timing felt symbolic, as if the land itself was celebrating the new beginning. The cattle grew fat on the fresh grazing, the wells stayed full, and the ranch began to turn a profit for the first time in 3 years. On a clear December morning, with the Nevada winter surprisingly cold but the sky brilliantly blue, Adam took Zara riding to the highest point on the ranch. From here you could see for miles in every direction, the land spread out like a promise beneath them. He dismounted and helped Zara down, his hands lingering on her waist longer than strictly necessary. "I have been thinking," he said, suddenly nervous in a way he had not been since he was a young man, "about the future, about what we are building here." "What about it?" Zara asked, her eyes curious. "I want to build it with you, not just the ranch but a life, a real life together." Adam took her hands in his. "I know we have not been courting long by traditional standards, but we have been partners for months now. I know you, Zara Preston. I know your strength and your stubbornness, your intelligence and your bravery. I know you are the best thing that has ever happened to me, even if I fought admitting it for far too long." "Adam," Zara breathed, her face flushing with emotion. "Will you marry me?" Adam asked simply. "Will you let me be your husband as well as your partner? Will you build this life with me, here on this land we both love?" "Yes," Zara said immediately, tears springing to her eyes. "Yes, absolutely yes." Adam pulled the ring from his pocket, a simple gold band with a small diamond that had belonged to his mother. It was all he had to offer, passed down from his grandmother before that, the only thing of value the bank had not taken. "It is not much, but it was my mother's. I think she would have liked you. It is perfect." Zara held out her hand, and Adam slipped the ring onto her finger, marveling that it fit as if it had been made for her. "I wish I could have known her. She would have loved you," Adam said with certainty. "She always said the ranch needed someone strong to survive, someone who was not afraid of hard work and hard choices. That is you." They kissed there on the hilltop, the December wind cold around them but neither caring, two wrapped up in each other and the promise of their future to notice the weather. When they finally rode back down to the ranch house, the sun was setting in a blaze of gold that painted everything in warm light. They were married 2 weeks later in the small church in Belmont, with half the town attending out of genuine affection, and the other half attending out of sheer curiosity, to see the Eastern heiress marry the broken cowboy she had saved. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when Adam kissed his bride, he felt his father's legacy and his own future merge into one perfect moment. The first year of their marriage was not easy. Running a ranch together while navigating a new marriage required compromise and communication, and there were arguments and misunderstandings along the way. But they worked through each conflict with the same determination they brought to ranch challenges, and by their first anniversary, they had settled into a partnership that was stronger for having been tested. Zara proved to be a natural rancher once she learned the skills, and her business acumen combined with Adam's practical knowledge made them formidable. They expanded the herd, purchased additional water rights, and slowly transformed the ranch from merely surviving to thriving. Adam had the foreman's cabin converted into a guest house and moved into the main house with Zara, finally feeling like he truly belonged there again. Their first child, a son they named after Adam's father, was born in the spring of 1884. Watching Zara hold their baby boy in the house where Adam had been born, seeing her face full of love and wonder, Adam felt a completeness he had never thought possible after the auction that had shattered his world. His son would grow up on this land, would learn to ranch as Adam had learned from his father, would carry on the legacy that had almost been lost. "What are you thinking?" Zara asked, catching him staring at her with their newborn son. "I am thinking that losing the ranch was the worst thing that ever happened to me," Adam said honestly. "And that you buying it was the best. I am thinking that sometimes you have to lose everything to gain what truly matters." "Deep thoughts for a new father," Zara teased gently, but her eyes were soft. "Do you still think about it?" "The auction, losing the ranch, sometimes," Adam admitted, "but not with pain anymore. More like remembering a bad dream that led to waking up to something wonderful." He sat beside her on the bed, looking down at his sleeping son. "If none of that had happened, we would never have met. I would still be here, probably still struggling with the drought, definitely still alone. Instead, I have you and him, and a future that looks brighter than anything I could have imagined." "We have worked hard for this future," Zara reminded him. "It was not just luck or fate. We chose this together." "We did," Adam agreed and leaned over to kiss her softly. "Best choice I ever made, saying yes when you asked me to run this ranch beside you." Their second child, a daughter they named for Zara's mother, arrived 2 years later. By then the ranch was prosperous enough to hire additional hands, giving Adam and Zara more time to focus on their growing family. They added onto the house, building additional bedrooms and a larger kitchen, making space for the life they were creating together. On a summer evening in 1887, 5 years after that fateful auction, Adam and Zara sat on the porch watching their children play in the yard, the Nevada sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The ranch stretched around them, green from good rains and well-managed water rights, the cattle healthy and the horses thriving. "You ever regret it?" Adam asked. "Leaving Boston, buying a ranch in the middle of nowhere, marrying a cowboy," Zara laughed, the sound rich and full of joy. "Not for a single moment. Do you ever regret agreeing to work with me? Not even close." Adam took her hand, the wedding ring on her finger catching the last rays of sunlight. "You saved me, you know. When I thought everything was lost, when I could not see any path forward, you gave me back my life." "We saved each other," Zara corrected. "You taught me what it means to truly love something, to fight for it, to build it with your own hands. You gave me a home and a purpose and a family. I think that makes us even." Their son came running up the porch steps then, chattering about the colt in the barn and demanding that his father come see how much it had grown. Adam stood with a smile, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately. "Come on then, let us go check on your colt." As they walked toward the barn together, 3-year-old boy between his parents holding both their hands, Adam felt the rightness of it all settle into his bones. This was what his father had wanted for the ranch. Not just survival but prosperity. Not just land but legacy. Not just a business but a home where family could thrive. The years continued to pass in the way they do on a working ranch, each season bringing its own challenges and rewards. They weathered bad years and celebrated good ones, expanded their holdings and improved their stock, and slowly became one of the most respected ranching families in Nevada. Their children grew, learning the land as Adam had learned it, developing the same love for it that had sustained the Garrett family for 3 generations. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Adam surprised Zara by having the ranch's original name, which the bank had removed when they foreclosed, restored to the gate. Garrett Ranch, the sign read, just as it had in his grandfather's time. But underneath, Adam had added, founded 1851, restored 1882, in honor of the year Zara had bought it and given it new life. Garrett Ranch, Zara read, her voice thick with emotion. Not Garrett Preston Ranch. Your name is Garrett now, Adam pointed out. Has been for 10 years. This is your ranch as much as mine, Zara. More, maybe, since you are the one who saved it. Our ranch, Zara said firmly. Always our ranch built together. By 1892, a decade after that auction that had changed everything, the ranch supported not just Adam and Zara's family, but provided employment for a dozen hands and their families. The drought that had nearly destroyed everything was a distant memory, replaced by years of good rain and careful water management. The cattle wore the Garrett brand, and that brand was respected throughout Nevada and beyond. Their children numbered 4 now, 2 boys and 2 girls, ranging in age from 8 to 14. The oldest was already showing signs of his father's instinct for ranching, spending every spare moment with the cattle or horses. The youngest was still small enough to need carrying, but she already had her mother's determination and her father's love for the land. Adam was 40 years old now, his hair showing the first hints of gray at the temples, his hands permanently scarred from years of hard work. Zara was 37, her face lined from years under the Nevada sun, but still beautiful to Adam, perhaps even more so than the day he had first seen her at the auction. They had built a life together that honored the past while creating something new, a partnership that had started in loss and grown into love. On a particularly beautiful autumn evening, when the air was cool but not yet cold, and the sunset painted the desert in shades of gold, Adam found Zara alone on the porch, watching the land with the expression of contentment he had come to know so well. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, settling into the rocking chair beside her. "I was thinking about the day I came to Belmont," Zara said. "How frightened I was, underneath all the confidence, how uncertain about whether I had made the right choice leaving Boston. And now I cannot imagine having chosen anything else." Zara reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining automatically after years of practice. Every hard moment, every challenge, every doubt, it was all worth it to build this life with you. "I was so angry with you that day," Adam remembered. "Thought you were some rich interloper playing at ranching that you would give up and leave at the first real difficulty. I know, you made that fairly clear." Zara smiled. "What changed your mind? You did. The way you showed up every morning ready to learn, the way you were not afraid of hard work or getting dirty, the way you loved this land almost immediately." Adam raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "The way you gave me back my home and my purpose when I thought both were lost forever." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun sink lower toward the horizon. In the distance, they could hear their children's laughter as they played before supper, and from the barn came the sounds of the hands finishing evening chores. It was the music of a working ranch, of a family thriving, of a legacy secure. "We should tell them the story someday," Zara said thoughtfully. "The children, about the auction and the drought and how we came to be partners." "We will," Adam promised, "when they are old enough to understand. We will tell them how their mother was the bravest woman in Nevada, coming west alone to build a new life. How she saved a broken cowboy and his dying ranch and turned both into something worth having." "That is not quite how it happened," Zara protested. "It is exactly how it happened," Adam insisted. "You saved me, Zara. Maybe I helped save the ranch with my knowledge of the land, but you saved me. Gave me back hope when I had none, gave me love when I thought I would spend my life alone. Gave me a future that was better than anything I had lost." Zara turned to look at him, her green eyes bright with unshed tears. "We saved each other then, because you gave me just as much. You taught me what it means to truly belong somewhere, to be part of something larger than myself." You gave me a home and a family, and a love I never thought I would find." Adam stood and pulled Zara to her feet, drawing her into his arms for a kiss that tasted of 10 years of partnership, of shared struggles and triumphs, of love that had started unexpectedly, but had grown into something unshakable. When their children came running up the porch steps demanding supper, Adam and Zara broke apart with matching smiles, ready to move into the comfortable rhythm of evening on a working ranch. There would be dinner to serve and children to bathe and morning chores to plan for, all the mundane details of life that made up something extraordinary when you did it with the person you loved most in the world. As Adam watched Zara usher their children inside, laughing at something their youngest said and resting her hand on their eldest son's shoulder with easy affection, he sent up a silent prayer of gratitude. Gratitude for the drought that had led to losing the ranch, for the auction that had seemed like the end of everything, for the Eastern woman who had bought his family's land, and then asked a broken cowboy to run it beside her. Sometimes losing everything was the only way to find what truly mattered. Sometimes the end of one dream was the beginning of something better than you could have imagined. Sometimes the person you thought was your enemy turned out to be your salvation, your partner, your love. The Garrett ranch would continue for generations. Adam knew. His children would inherit it, and their children after them. And somewhere down the line someone would stand on this same porch and watch the Nevada sunset, and think about the man and woman who had built something lasting from the ashes of loss. They would know the story of Adam Garrett, who lost his family's ranch to drought and debt, and Zara Preston, who traveled west seeking freedom and found home instead. They would know about the partnership that became a courtship, the courtship that became a marriage, the marriage that became a legacy. They would know that love could grow in the harsh Nevada desert if you tended it carefully, that two people from completely different worlds could build something beautiful together, that endings were sometimes just beginnings in disguise. The years rolled on, bringing with them all the joys and sorrows that make up a life well lived. Adam's hair turned fully gray, and Zara's face showed the marks of time and weather, but the love between them only deepened. Their children grew and had children of their own, and the ranch house that had once echoed with emptiness filled with the sound of 3 generations learning to work the land together. On their 25th wedding anniversary, Adam arranged for their children and grandchildren to care for the ranch while he took Zara on a trip back to Boston. She had not been east since leaving, and he wanted to give her a chance to see how her old world looked through the lens of the new life she had built. They walked through the streets where she had grown up, visited her father's grave, and attended a dinner party with some of her old acquaintances. Ready to stay? Adam teased as they left the party, where the conversation had been all about politics and society gossip and nothing that mattered to their daily lives. God, no, Zara laughed. I forgot how stifling it all is, how meaningless. She took his arm as they walked back to their hotel. Take me home, Adam. Back to Nevada, back to the ranch, back to the life we built. That is where I belong. They returned to Belmont 2 weeks later, both relieved to be back in the wide, open spaces of the desert. Their oldest grandson, 10 years old and showing every sign of becoming a fine rancher himself, met them at the station with breathless news about a calf born while they were away, a mare who was due to foal any day, all the small but vital happenings of ranch life. Adam listened with a smile, ruffling the boy's hair affectionately, seeing in him echoes of himself at that age and his father before him. The legacy would continue. The land would be cared for. The story that had started with loss and been transformed by love would go on. That night, lying in bed with Zara curled against his side the way she had slept for 25 years. Adam reflected on how completely his life had changed since that terrible day of the auction. If someone had told him then that the woman buying his ranch would become his wife, his partner, the mother of his children, and the great love of his life, he would have thought they were insane. But that was exactly what had happened. Zara had bought the ranch the bank took from him, had asked the broken cowboy to run it beside her, and in doing so had given him back everything he thought he had lost and more besides. She had taken a man who had nothing left to lose and given him everything worth having. Still awake. Zara murmured sleepily. "Just thinking," Adam said, pressing a kiss to her forehead, "about how lucky I am." "We both are," Zara corrected, as she always did when he said things like this. "Lucky to have found each other, lucky to have built this life together." "I love you," Adam said, words he had spoken thousands of times over their 25 years together, but that never felt like enough to encompass what he felt. "I love you too," Zara replied, and then she was drifting off to sleep, secure in the knowledge that tomorrow would bring more work and challenges, but that they would face it together, as they always had. The years continued their steady march, bringing Adam and Zara into their 60s and eventually their 70s. They slowed down as age demanded, turning over more and more of the daily operations to their children and grandchildren, but they never fully retired from the work. The ranch was too much a part of them, too deeply woven into their identities, to ever truly step away. On a spring morning in 1912, 30 years after that fateful auction, Adam stood at the fence line watching his great-grandson, just 5 years old, feed apples to the horses. 4 generations of Garretts now, all of them connected to this land, all of them carrying forward the legacy that had almost died, but had been saved by an unlikely partnership between a broken cowboy and an Eastern heiress. Zara joined him at the fence, moving more slowly now but still steady, still strong. "Remembering?" she asked, following his gaze to their great-grandson. "Always," Adam admitted. "How could I not? Everything we have, everything we built, it all started with you taking a chance on a ranch in the middle of nowhere and a man who had lost everything." "You took just as big a chance on me," Zara pointed out. "Agreeing to work with a woman who did not know a cow from a bull, trusting that I would not give up when things got hard. Best gamble I ever took." Adam put his arm around her shoulders, and she leaned into him automatically, the gesture comfortable after 3 decades of practice. They stood watching their great-grandson for a while longer, and then Zara said quietly, "I need you to promise me something." "Anything," Adam said immediately. "When I am gone, do not grieve too long. Celebrate what we built, remember the good times, but do not let it break you. You are too strong for that, and I love you too much to want you spending your final years in sorrow." "Zara," Adam protested, hating even the thought of losing her. "Hush. We both know I am not immortal, and neither are you." She turned to look up at him, her green eyes still sharp despite her age. "We have had 30 good years, Adam, more than many people get. When the time comes for one of us to go, the other needs to remember how lucky we were to have what we had." "I do not know if I can promise that," Adam said honestly. "I do not know how to exist without you anymore. You would find a way because you are strong and stubborn and because our children and grandchildren would need you." Zara reached up to cup his weathered face in her hand. "But hopefully we have many more years before either of us needs to worry about it. I am just saying, when the time comes, remember that the love does not end. It just changes form." They never spoke of it again, but Adam carried her words with him. As it turned out, they had another 8 years together, before Zara's heart finally gave out one autumn morning in 1920. She died peacefully in her sleep, lying beside Adam in the bed they had shared for 38 years, and when he woke to find her gone, he felt as if part of his own soul had departed with her. The funeral was the largest Belmont had ever seen, with people coming from all over Nevada and beyond to pay their respects to Zara Garrett. She had become a legend in her own right over the years, the Eastern woman who had come west and built an empire, who had saved a failing ranch and turned it into one of the most successful operations in the state, who had proven that a woman could be just as capable a rancher as any man. Adam accepted the condolences with as much grace as he could manage, but inside he felt hollow, lost without the partner who had been by his side for nearly 4 decades. He tried to follow Zara's advice to celebrate what they had built rather than drown in grief, but it was hard when everywhere he looked he saw reminders of her, his children, worried about him, suggested he might want to move into town to live somewhere without so many memories. But Adam refused. This was his home, the place where he and Zara had built their life together, and he would not abandon it just because she was gone. Her presence was in every corner of the ranch, in every decision they had made together, in every building and fence line and water well. Leaving would be like leaving her behind completely, and he could not do that. Instead, he threw himself into helping his grandchildren and great-grandchildren run the ranch, passing on every bit of knowledge he possessed, making sure the next generation understood not just how to run a cattle operation, but why it mattered. He told them stories about their grandmother, about the woman who had saved him and the ranch, about the partnership that had become so much more. On a warm summer evening 2 years after Zara's death, Adam sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the desert in familiar colors. His oldest grandson sat beside him, now a man in his 30s with children of his own, listening as Adam talked about the early days. "So she really just walked up to you after buying the ranch and asked you to run it?" The grandson asked, clearly enjoying the story even though he had heard versions of it before. "She did," Adam confirmed. "Bold as brass, not afraid of my anger or my pride, just saw what needed to be done and did it. You must have hated her at first." "I wanted to hate her," Adam corrected. But Zara made it impossible. She was too genuine, too determined, too clearly in love with the land from the first moment she saw it. And she gave me back something I thought was lost forever. The ranch. More than that. She gave me back purpose, hope, a reason to keep going when I wanted to give up. And eventually she gave me love, family, a life that was richer than anything I could have imagined. Adam paused, his throat tight with emotion. "I miss her every day. But I also thank God every day that she came to Belmont, that she bought this ranch, that she gave a broken cowboy a second chance." They sat in silence for a while, and then his grandson said, "We will keep it going, Grandpa. The ranch, the legacy, everything you and Grandma built, I promise." "I know you will," Adam said, and meant it. The Garrett Ranch would continue long after he was gone, a testament to what 2 people could build when they worked together, when they loved the land and each other with equal passion. Adam Garrett lived for another 3 years, long enough to see the ranch continue to prosper, long enough to watch his great-great-grandchildren begin to toddle around the ranch yard, long enough to know with certainty that what he and Zara had built would endure. He died peacefully on a spring morning in 1923, sitting on the porch of the house where he had been born, looking out over the land he had loved his entire life. They buried him beside Zara in the family cemetery on the hill overlooking the ranch, and at his funeral, his children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren spoke of his legacy, of the love story that had saved a failing ranch and created a dynasty, of the man who had lost everything and been given a second chance by an unlikely angel from the East. The Garrett Ranch continued through the decades, through drought and depression, through war and prosperity, through all the changes the 20th century brought to the American West. New generations were born and learned to love the land as their ancestors had, and the story of Adam and Zara became part of the family mythology, told and retold until it took on an almost legendary quality. But at its heart, it remained a simple story. A story of loss and redemption, of unlikely partnership becoming deep love, of two people from different worlds finding common ground in the Nevada desert. A story of a woman brave enough to buy a failing ranch and ask a broken cowboy to run it beside her, and a man wise enough to accept the second chance he was being offered. It was a love story, pure and simple, played out against the harsh beauty of the Wild West. And like all great love stories, it transcended its participants, becoming something larger, something that inspired and endured long after the lovers themselves had passed into memory. The ranch stood as their monument, and every sunset that painted the Nevada desert in shades of gold and purple was a reminder of what two people could build when they chose partnership over pride, love over loss, and hope over despair.